Okay. We're starting this class a bit late, and I apologize. And today we're going to be learning Parshat Shemini 5784. It's a Parshat that doesn't often get a very good chance to be learned well, and it needs to be. There's a lot of important details here, and in general and specifically. So the Parshat ends, starts with the ending of the inauguration of the Mishkan. The Mishkan that's what's Yom HaShmini, the eighth day, from whence the Parsha gets its name. On the eighth day, the Mishkan was done. The Kohanim are finally inaugurated, and they start doing their work. And on the same day, tragedy strikes. Nadav and Avihu, the two of Aaron's four sons, die in the process of creating some sort of strange fire, which obviously deserves some sort of explanation, which we'll hopefully get to in just moments. And furthermore, the Parsha then goes on to give us some of the rules of the Kohanim. They're not allowed to drink before they do their service, and then some of the rules of kashrut, which animals are kosher, etc., are all in this Parsha, which, like I said, is jam-packed, has a lot to say. And so without any further ado, let's get right into the source sheet sent out yesterday. We're going to start this year. We'll start with the actual death of Nadav and Avihu and try to get a little bit some clarity on the subject, I hope. In previous years, we've begun with earlier in the Parsha as is our method. So let's get straight into chapter 10, verse 1. V'yiku b'nei Yisrael Nadav and Avihu, and the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu took Eish, fire, Machtato, fire of the fire pan, V'itnu b'hem Eish v'yasimo laha ketorah v'yakriv l'nei Hashem. They put it in the fire. They put the fire in the pan onto the fire. They put ketoret on it. They put some incense on it. Everything is good. And then, seemingly, then v'yikrivu l'nei Hashem Eish zara. And they offered to Hashem a strange fire, asher lo tziva otam, that they were not commanded to do. So what did they do? How did they do it? Seems pretty clear from the verse. They brought an alien fire. They were told to do A, they decided to do B, and therefore they got killed. But it seems that the rabbis are not satisfied with that. As Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky brings up in Emet Liakov, b'mitat b'nei Aaron rabu hadeo. There are a lot of explanations. Mar amar mipnei shehoru halacha mipnei rabba. One rabbi says because they decided a halachic decision in front of the rabbis, whether that be Aaron or Moshe, without asking their permission or their opinion. Mar amar shetu yayin hayu, that maybe they were drinking wine. That's why the Parsha of as we said earlier, the Parsha of the forbidding a kohen from drinking wine is immediately following. Omar amar shekvar shenitchayevu b'Sinai. They weren't even. It's not that they did anything wrong here. The important thing is that back at Har Sinai, there was a verse that describes some of the leaders as sitting and eating in front of Hashem. And this is punishment for them. Maybe another opinion is that they didn't marry wives. Achi Avinu Melech, Achi Imanu Nasi Shevet. There's Mishu Ruilanu. There's another opinion. There's a midrash that says that they were anticipating, maybe even positively, the death of their father, where they can take over and be the leaders. So they didn't want to they didn't marry because they didn't want to perform pruvu. Umar mar mipnei shenichnesu shelo chutze yadayim raglayim. Maybe they did the service without washing their hands. Amar mipnei shelo nitulu They didn't speak. They didn't get advice from each other even. Amar mipnei she'amru meitia muta shnei zekanim halalu. When are these? This is the one I was referring to earlier. When will these older people die? This Moshe and Aharon. Vani ve'ata mefanes et hador. And then we, the two of us, will be in charge of the generation. Va'ayim b'midrashim. There's a lot of midrashim he quotes. There's a footnote 3, and the actual source. I don't think I copied that, but there's a number of answers midrashically, agadically in the Gemara. L'felahi, l'chora, and this is really a big wonder. Amai. Nichbu azah chatayim shonim mishonim kedoshim halalu. Why are we degrading these people with other sins? They did one sin. They brought Amar Moshe Rabbeinu Alehem Bikrovaya Kaddish, and they're very holy people. Moshe himself says to Aaron, I was told that Hashem was going to become sanctified through somebody's death. I thought it was my death. It turns out it's there in exchange for me. That's how great they are. Madua lo hifsik lahem mashakatav mefurash b'Torah. Why can't we just accept what the Torah tells us? The Torah says it very clearly. Hikrivam eish zara shelot tziva otam. They brought an alien fire that Hashem didn't command them. Yeah, fine, finished. Why do you need all these other explanations about all the different reasons why they deserve death? Umadua henichu pshuto shel mikra shelachora mafsiku. Why can't we just take the simple explanation and go with it? Why are we unsatisfied with that? V'hanira, and it seems to me, says Rav Yaakov, the Chazal huksha lahem eich yitaken be'emet shekedoshim halalu avru. We need to understand why these great holy people that substituted for Moshe, right? How did what led them to sin? How could they sink so low to bring something that they weren't supposed to the Mishkan? I mean, I'm not as holy as them, and I see it very clearly in the Torah not to bring anything extra. I won't bring anything extra. The Torah says, do A, B, and C. I'm not going to bring in D. Okay, A, B, and C is all that needs to be done. So he continues, Al Korachak, you're forced to say, yeah, we're all forced to say something. Al Korachak mipnei shehoru halacha mipnei rabban, based on the answer that we gave earlier, that they paskined a halacha, they decided a law in front of the rabbi. Aval adayin einu miyushav. Malam libam lahorod b'makom Moshe Rabbeinu. How could they possibly do that? V'kan tisbu l'shoresh shemamenu nistaef ha'isur. You're not allowed to do that. How could they do such a thing? But al kain the eze sarach shel gazut haruach havel kan. What does it mean to answer a question in front of your Rebbe? Why would somebody do such a thing? And once we think about this, says Rav Yaakov, that's the key to unlocking the rest of these answers. When a person decides a halach in front of his Rebbe, what that person is saying is, I know it better. I am so great that I know it that well. I know this clearly. And I can answer the question before my Rebbe even gets a chance. If you're on that level of pride, arrogance, lack of humility, whatever you want to call it, that'll lead to everything else here. Let me show you how that works. Yeah. So how could such holy people do such a thing? They didn't see eye to eye with Moshe Rabbeinu, V'lo chas v'shalom ha'haga shel Moshe v'Aharon. It's not like they were jealous of them. They just realized that they thought of themselves as higher. They thought of themselves as great. You and I will lead the nation. Meaning, Kolomar, we will follow the Torah, maybe even better than Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron. We're great. Hine stayed yayin adayin lo nesra, and that's the drinking the wine wasn't even not allowed yet. The Isser, the kohen being forbidden from doing such a thing, is right after this. So what does that mean? Emet yom simcha hu lahem, but it was a day of joy for them. Ki hayom nichanchu b'kahuna. This is the day that they actually started being kohanim. V'ha b'yom chinuch osim anu sudat bar mitzvah, and on such a day, it's on such a day we also celebrate these things. We also make a party. So they're just drinking because it's a party, right? However, so such a thing, you would maybe drink a little bit. Lo shechorim, you wouldn't drink a lot. You drink just a little bit. But shouldn't they be? This isn't just a ceremony. They're still doing stuff in the Mishkan. They're involved. They still have work to do. Shouldn't they be afraid? Shouldn't they have had some pachad, some fear, to even put wine into their mouths to cloud their judgment at all, as we're about to see? They're about to experience the Shekhinah. Why would they not want to have a clear recollection of this? Imagine, you're about to take a picture, right? An important picture. This is the picture that's going to be remembered forever. It's going to be in your foyer when people walk into your house are going to see this picture. Would you want to make sure your lens is clean? This is their memory lens. They're about to take a pic. They're about to be with the Shekhinah for the first time. About to feel Hashem's presence. Is that a good time to take a drink? Even a little bit of a drink? Lose a few brain cells? Im kain. And the same thing when they drank and ate at Har Sinai. And it could be that they didn't even when Chazal tell us that they weren't married, it wasn't because they were such sanctified people. It wasn't because they were they didn't have any shidduchim. Aval Chazal achrei sheyirdu b'toch tocham matzu b'korat b'zeh shegam kan garma gazut haruach. So this is also this arrogance that they did find women, but they weren't fit for them. They're too great for any of these peasants, these people below them. Hainu b'kol adam nimtzat nekuda merkazit shehi minia et kol chatai ha'adam. V'kav aleph hu the machariz alav al kol machsholot ha'adam v'chein metzinu harbe pamim mishchein charzu chazal richzu kol chatai ha'adam tachat kav aleph. So again, all of the different opinions of all the different rabbis about why they did what they did, it wasn't why they got punished. It wasn't about figuring out why they got punished. The Torah is very clear on that. We were trying to figure out what could have led to that. You know what led to that? That one thing that leads everybody to every mistake they make. It's being overconfident. It's being arrogant. It's a grave disease of the mind that really needs to be worked on for everybody and everybody's different level. If you think back to any mistake you made, you'll find that a little bit of arrogance is probably part of the problem, at least. And if not, then you want to look and think about it some more. All right, we're going to skip to, like I said, the warning for a kohen to not drink before the service. It says chapter 10, verses 9 through 11. Yain v'shechar al teish, don't drink wine or intoxicating beverages. Atao v'nechov itcha, you and your son with you. V'vachem el ohem moed, when you go to the old moed. In other words, when you serve, he's talking to the kohen, when you serve in the Mishkan. And do not cause yourself to die. And this is forever. This isn't just while there's a Mishkan. Even when there's not a Mishkan, as we'll see. And you have to be able to distinguish between what's holy and what's secular. What is impure and what is pure. And then finally, and this is a more relevant point, unfortunately, at these times, when a rabbi is forbidden to drink, even when he's not just a kohen, but this is even applied to rabbis who decide halacha, l'horot at bnei Yisrael el hachukim asher diber Hashem alechem biyad Moshe. So that when we're teaching, we have to be very clear-minded. We can't be intoxicated. We can't be high or in any way fog our minds from what the truth is. So we'll start with Rav Hirsch. Then we'll see a very interesting Gemara, I think. So Rav Hirsch says that the Gemara in Krisot says we find various opinions as to the object and the extent of this prohibition. According to the halacha as stated by the Rambam, Hilchot Biat HaMikdash, Shechar includes not only wine, but any intoxicating drink. We said that. Good, we're still in agreement with the Rambam. There's no chiyuv mita or chilul avoda. It's not like you're going to die if you do it, or you're passeling, you're making the service ineligible, unless one drinks wine in an intoxicating quantity, which is defined as a revi'it of unmixed, undiluted wine, or more than a revi'it of diluted wine, revi'it being, let's say, for argument's sake, 3.3 ounces. Fluid ounces in this case. The discussion here then is not of full-fledged drunkenness, but of reasonable grounds for suspecting the clouding of mental clarity. Now we're going to get to the reason why this is a problem. Hence, he who drinks yayin v'shechar is forbidden to serve in the mikdash, to make legal decisions regarding the mikdash, or to decide any practical halachic question, as we said before. And here we get into one of the most important ideas that we have in Judaism about why we need to stay sober and clear-minded. And this is maybe a little bit ironic that we're a week and a half past Purim, the one day a year when we're encouraged to not be this sober, say. But he says here, for what is required for the practice of God's commandments is not hazy and excited emotion and imagination, but a clear mind and a sharp and sober intellect. The symbols of the sanctuary speak not to the imagination, but to the clear and lucid mind. For only the mind which comprehends clearly reaches accurate conclusions and places every detail in its proper category is capable of guiding us to carry out God's commandments. When you're excited, when you're drunk, when you're using your imagination to picture all kinds of crazy things, purple hazes and everything else, you're not clear, and anything you say and can and will be wrong. It's not, you're not going to give, there's the stories of famous lahavdil, famous poets who woke up in drunken hazes or high on lithium or whatever it is they were taking. And whoever wrote that Kubla Khan or whatever, right? There's like fanciful bouts of imagination. Of course, you have to go back to it and rewrite it, spell it correctly, put it in lines, whatever was going on after while they were high from the in those opium dens. All right. Anyway, whatever the case may be, that's not what we're looking for in our halachic decisions. We don't want somebody who's just gonna like just ramble on poetically and on flights of imagination. Aaron's sons died because they were captivated by the exhilaration of their own hearts. By the way, if you recall, Rav Yaakov said the same thing there. This is a lesson for all future Kohanim and teachers of the law. See yourselves only as servants of the sanctuary and as teachers and realizers of Torah. Do not teach what your heart tells you. Rather, teach God's law and his Torah. This Torah doesn't come from within. My heart tells me that this is the thing to do. I think this is, it doesn't matter what you think. What matters is what does the Torah say? What does Hashem want? And that's not from within, that's from without. Be agents for and guides to the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Do not follow the dictates of misguided and misleading imagination. It says here, a quote from Malachi, Ki sifte kohen yishmuru dat. The lips of the kohen guard knowledge. The Torah yuvakshu mepihu ki malach Hashem tzvakotu. The Jewish teacher of the law must remain a student of the Torah all his life. Some very sharp words, very important idea. Certainly in this day and age, when we have when we have so many people, I'm not going to give names to these groups, but you probably know what I'm talking about. There's all kinds of groups that pride themselves on how high they are, how they can think about different levels of thinking and beyond the physical, and they can look into the spiritual. Okay, you know what? Some people can. I believe that. I'm okay with that. But that's not something you can teach the average person. And all you're doing by teaching them this kind of Torah is giving them, they've got a broken leg, and you're giving them ibuprofen. You know what I'm saying? You're not fixing anything. People need to know what the Torah says, not what your beautiful imagination can dream up. All right, enough of a rant about that. All right, interesting Gemara in Tiny. I have nothing to say about this. I just want everybody to know this Gemara. A kohen, back in the time of the Gemara, Kohanim still knew when their schedule to work in the Mishkan was, to work in the Beit HaMikdash was. Right? This is a good, say, 500 years or so after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. People still knew these things. Nowadays, 1,500 years after the Talmud, I don't think anybody has a recollection of when their family's turn is to go serve in the temple. But the Gemara says, Kol Kohen Shemakir Mishmarato Mishmeret Beit Avshalom. If a Kohen does know it, maybe the DNA test told them when their service was, right? Just kidding, but Shabbat Avotav Kivuim Sham, and these times were set. Asher Lishto Yayin Kol Oto Hayom. They're not allowed to drink wine all that day. Think about this for a moment. When is the Gemara written? As I just said, 500 years after the destruction of the temple. A Kohen cannot drink on the day he knows his service is, that entire day. Why? Then there's the different designations of what they know, what they don't know, exactly whether they can drink that week, whether they can't drink that month, etc. The point of the Gemara is the temple will be rebuilt. And we're looking forward to and anticipating that moment when that happens. And the Kohanim should be ready for that all the time. They should all the time be ready. The Chavetz Chaim famously made a big deal about this. He himself was a Kohen, and he wrote books and taught people one-on-one even how to do the service in the Beit HaMikdash, to be prepared for when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt. I was told recently by somebody that they know several kohanim who are so ready, they've already grown out their thumbnail. They're in preparation for Malika, the killing of the birds, for sacrifices. Not that I don't know if they practiced, but they're ready. They have a nice, long, sharp thumbnail, all ready to go. Their other nails are trimmed every day just to be ready to do all of the service properly. The point is, from this Gemara in Tani 17a, the point is that a person should always be ready to do the service, and even Kohanim, when they're about to take a drink, they should stop and think. Is it my time to be serving in the mikdash? Can I perhaps have a drink or not? I'm not going to get into the halacha now, but there's discussion about that over there in the Gemara. All right. Yeah, I forgot to add that. All right. All right. We'll have to do something else. All right. Fine. We're going to learn a little bit about kosher food and a little bit about the signs of a kosher animal. It says, "V'deber Hashem el Moshe ve'el Aharon limur alehem." Moshe and Aaron are both told by Hashem, "Daber al bnei Yisrael lemor," say to the Jewish people, saying, "Achaya asher tochlu mikol behema asher al haaretz," which animals they can eat from the animals that are available. Not all animals are kosher, as we know. They need to have two simanim, two signs. They need to chew their cud, which means that they are ruminants and they have multiple stomachs. When they take food in, let's say they ate some grass, that grass gets swallowed and gets put into one stomach, and then gets when they're not eating grass, that grass that they had already eaten leaves the stomach, goes through a pipe, back up. They chew it some more, and then it goes back into another stomach. That's basic biology there for you, zoology, or whatever you want to call it. Interestingly enough, the Parsha here does not actually list which animals are kosher, which ones are not. That you'll have to wait for Parshat Re'eh, but it tells you what the simanim are, what the signs are. Again, that's the split hooves and the chewing of the cud. I think I forgot to mention the split hooves. Kedusha Levi writes on these verses, Yesh l'daktik mai nemar alehem. Why does it say that they have to tell it to them? Near the Hine Rashi Zal Ktav al Pasuk Helech Karati Lecha Isha Mineket Min ha Ivriot Shehach Zirto Shel Mitzriot Harbe Linak Velo Yinak Lefi Shehu Ati Ladaber Imashchina Lefi. So Imashchina. So to remind you that there was a time back before the Exodus from Egypt that Moshe was born, and he was found by Batya Bat Paro as he was floating down the river Nile, and she wanted to feed him, and he was not taking milk from any of the Mitzriot, any of the Egyptian women. So he had to be nursed by a Jewish woman. Happened to be it was his own mother. And Rashi points out there, as the Kedushat Levi here says, that the reason is because this is the mouth that will in the future be speaking to the Shechina. So he has to be kosher. He has to eat only kosher so that his mouth will be kosher and that he'll be able to lead the Jewish people. And therefore they didn't want for him to the Torah does not want for him to nurse from somebody who's not a kosher eating person. He's going to be a prophet someday in the future, and he's going to speak to the Shechina itself. Rambam HaKadosh Katav, and the holy Ramban writes, Masha Asur Lana HaTorah Ilu HaTameim Mishum HaIlu Molidim Teva Achzariot Beguf Adam So the Ramban famously believes that part of the reasons for kosher is that there's a negative effect on the person from eating these animals. But that's only for Yisrael. The Yisrael am kodesh tzrichim liyot lahem midat hachesed. We need to be good, and we want to eat animals that are good, that are, let's say, generous. We want to eat only animals that are generous because that's going to affect our own generosity. Our characteristic is affected by the characteristic of the animals that we eat, otherwise known in English as "you are what you eat." V'latid lavo atid hakadosh baruch hu ledaber im kol ish misrael, and in the future, that Shechina that Moshe spoke to, that Shechina is going to talk to you. That Shechina is going to talk to me. That Shechina is going to talk to all Jewish people. How do I know that? Because there's a verse in Yoel, in the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 1. Navu b'nechem u'b'notechem. Your sons and your daughters will be prophets. And since Hashem is going to speak to them, how is it going to be possible for a mouth that ate not kosher food to speak to Shechina? Moshe wouldn't nurse from an Egyptian woman because he was going to speak to the Shechina. How can a Jew eat not kosher? The Shechina is going to be talking to you. You're going to have a one-on-one with Hashem. That's the lemor alehem. And that's why it says, speak to them. Haremes shani atid she'amar alehem. I will speak to them, is what Hashem is saying. That you need to give this rule over to them. Otherwise, it wouldn't have said to them. To them is hinting to an important idea that the Jewish people are going to be spoken to by Hashem. And that's why they need to keep kosher. L'chol echad ve'echad, to each and every single one of them. L'kach lo yachlu davar tameh. That's why they shouldn't eat anything that's tameh. That's a beautiful idea from the Kedushat Levi of Berdichev, of Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. All right. Let's have another interesting Gemara here. So the verse at chapter 11, 40, verse 42, Yud Aleph Mem Bet, tells us, Ko holech al gachon, you cannot eat any animals that crawl on their belly. V'cho holech al arba, any animal that walks on four. Ad kol marbel reglayim, v'chol hasheretz hashoretz al haaretz v'lo tochlum ki sheketz hem. And it doesn't just have to be four legs. If it has many legs, it's a centipede or anything like that, millipede, whatever it is, doesn't matter how many legs it has. If it's got lots of legs, it's not kosher. Why? Because ki sheketz and because they are disgusting. So the Gemara towards the end of Kedushin 30a. Lamed Amud Aleph, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Lefichach Nikru Roshim Sofrim Hayu Sopirin Kol HaOtiot Shebetorah. You know why somebody who writes the Torah is called a sofer? Because they are sipur. They count all of the letters of the Torah. What does that mean? Shayu omrim vav, and they say that this vav in Vayikra, in our verse, hagachon. If you look at it, you see the vav is very big. Chetzion shel otiod shel Sefer Torah. It's the middle of the Sefer Torah. By the way, it kind of isn't. I'm not going to get into that now. Darsh chetzion shel tevat. And they say other things about other words. V'hit galach shel psukim is that word is the middle of all the psukim, etc. That's what I was going to bring. Right. Second. One second. Okay. Yeah, I forgot to bring the source. I apologize. And the Sfat Emet, I'll just say it outside. The Sfat Emet comments on this Gemara and on this idea, and he says like this: of all the words in the entire Torah that could be in the middle of the Torah, it's the word gachon, that they crawl on their bellies. And these creatures that crawl on their bellies are not kosher. So that's the letter that's in the middle of the Torah. Why is that the letter that's in the middle of the Torah, at least symbolically? So Sfat Emet tells us that a person should always remember to be humble. So what that you've reached half the Torah? Let's say you've done a great job and you learned a lot of the Torah and you learned it well. You're 50% of the way there. That's great. That's wonderful. But always remember that's a gift from Hashem. You know, we rise ourselves up. We pick ourselves up as if we deserve something just because we've accomplished something, and that's great. And there's something to be said for that. But you have to also remember that we have to have some sort of humility, and remember that really everything we have, everything we've accomplished, is only thanks to Hashem. An important idea, right there in the Sfat Emet. God willing, to next week we'll have next week also we'll have some more Torah to share, and God willing, in the coming years, next year as well, we'll be able to learn the Parshat as well, and and learn more. Right. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day, and a Shabbat Shalom.